Now in the first week of August, a movie came out and I was really excited for it. It was one of my most anticipated films of the year. And ever since I saw that trailer, my mind was blown and I knew I had to see this movie to see just how good it might be. Well, I'm not reviewing that movie right now. That's later. No, instead I'm reviewing a different movie, the other movie that came out that week. 9 Lives. I'll get to Suicide Squad later, but let's start off with 9 Lives. Yay. Now I wasn't really planning on seeing this movie the week it came out, but I ended up doing so because, well, my dad and I, we got free tickets, and there were tickets for 2 specific theaters of the 3 that are in my town. Unfortunately, all the ones we wanted to see from those theaters, we've already seen, and I didn't really want to see some of those movies twice. And so with these free tickets, we had to use it that week, and we're like, oh, let's see a bad movie for free. And I was more attracted to 9 Lives rather than Nerve, which Nerve just looked like average, mediocre, But I thought 9 Lives was going to be one of those really crazy, bonkers movies, so bad that you just have to see it. And for the most part it was. First, let's get into the plot of 9 Lives, okay? Kevin Spacey turns into a cat. Do I need to say more? Okay, yeah, there is more to this movie than just that. Kind of. Kevin Spacey owns this big company, and all he really wants to do is make the tallest building in, is it the world or just the northern hemisphere? I can't remember, honestly. Bear with me, I saw this last Saturday, so it's almost been an entire week, and this is a pretty forgettable movie. But he's all about building the tallest building, and unfortunately there's a company in Chicago that it might have built a even taller building before he opens this one up. And so he's really engrossed in his work about making the tallest building, making sure it's the tallest building, while everyone else that owns the company is like, hey, this is a foolhardy thing, you're wasting a lot of money, this is just a foolish endeavor. But Kevin Spacey continually reminds them, I have 51%, I own this company, you do what I want. But because he's so engrossed in his work, he doesn't have enough time for his family. His wife, played by Jennifer Garner, and they have a young daughter as well. A young daughter that's about to turn 11. And all she wants is a cat. So Kevin Spacey goes out, buys a cat, he's running late for the party, he buys a cat from Christopher Walken, who is kind of like his Click character in this film. But something horrible happens, a huge accident, well, actually not an accident, it's sort of an accident, and then sort of a attempt on his life because someone refuses to help him, a person who actually wants to take over the company himself. Yeah, there's business backstabbing in this movie. And when he wakes up, he finds himself in the body of a cat while his real body is in a coma. And now he has to figure out what caused this, figure out how to get back into his body before his body dies and he's stuck in the cat body for the rest of his life. That's 9 Lives. Now, after seeing a lot of bad reviews, hearing about what this movie is like, I was thinking, okay, I'm going to go into it hoping it's a really abysmal, horrible movie so I can have a fun time. Because maybe it could be a so bad it's good sort of movie. Or so atrocious that it's absolutely hilarious. And there are definitely moments in this film like that. But there's actually some genuine good moments as well. And some just really bland, forgettable things. So let's start off with the good first. Yeah, there is actually some good in this movie that I found. For one, most of the actors and actresses did a passable job. Yes, a lot of them are phoning it in, and a lot of them do feel like, well, just dumb characters by how they act and how they don't really react to the crazy things that are happening in the movie. But I think there are a few standouts. Kevin Spacey, when he is his normal human self, is fine and good. Christopher Walken is good as well, and he usually is good in these crazy movies. Usually you can, when he's in these kind of crazy, bizarre, outlandish movies, he's usually the standout, and he was more subtle in this one than he has been in other types of movies like this, but I found him good in it. I also found the daughter pretty good as well. I'm going to post the actress's name down below, the young actress that's playing this 11-year-old girl. I think she was good as well, but I didn't like the character. I liked the acting, but the character was a little annoying at times, and not necessarily annoying, but hard to believe how naive this character is. And yes, she's supposed to be this very innocent girl, this very good girl, this girl that doesn't really know all the negative and bad things going around her. But because they continually reference that she's 11, there's moments where I find it hard to believe 11-year-old doesn't know some of the things she doesn't know in this movie, making her less innocent and more just naive. And speaking of her, the moments that really stand out in this film that are genuinely good are some of the moments where it's her and Kevin Spacey as a cat, and the relationship and the bonds between them. She plays the one character in this entire film that really feels like she has a bond with her father, other than his son, but we'll get into that maybe a little bit later. And so there are a few moments with her and the cat, and especially when she starts realizing the cat is her father, there are some really decent moments in it, and it felt like if this was in a normal movie, a good movie, this would be a really good scene. One scene in particular is hinted at a little bit in the trailer, but it's edited in a way where we don't realize the true depth to that scene. There's a scene in the trailer where he kicks this phone into a toilet, or at least it looks like he kicks it into a toilet because she takes a photo of him pooping or peeing in the litter box. And this is not the daughter, this is actually, what is her relationship? Because there's this girl that's the daughter of Kevin Spacey's ex. So is this Kevin Spacey's other daughter and the stepsister of the daughter now in this movie? Because that's never quite explained. Two girls call themselves friends, or at least the blonde girl says that they're friends, because that's what friends do, and she's a total bitch, honestly. The little blonde-haired girl is. And I was so glad her phone got put in the toilet. But this young blonde girl and the daughter, they continue to say they're friends, but the son, who is from the ex-wife and Kevin Spacey, it seems like the daughter actually calls him brother rather than stepbrother or rather than friend. So I'm wondering if the blonde girl is from a different marriage, even though the ex doesn't seem like she's married at all. So, what? Believe me, there's some really questionable relationships in this movie, and I just went off in a huge tangent. Anyway, this scene where she gets her phone kicked into the toilet, it wasn't because she was taking a picture of Kevin Spacey in the litter box. That's a totally different scene, and he doesn't get his picture taken for that. The trailer manipulated it into thinking it was that, but it's not. Instead, there's this picture that she takes of the daughter, which is actually pretty cruel, and she posts it, and that's when Kevin Spacey's like, hey, I gotta show my daughter this, and so he kicks it to his daughter, and his daughter is the one that puts the phone in the toilet because of what is posted and what the picture is. I thought that scene was actually really good. Of course, I tried to keep a lot of spoilers out of it, so I didn't mention what the picture is, but if you happen to see this movie, if you happen to, and you know that scene, then you know what I'm talking about. I also kind of like that Kevin Spacey was continually trying to communicate with his family to try to explain in different, pretty unique ways that he's inside the body of a cat. Now, he may give up on a few of those things that if he gave a second go, he probably would have got their attention, but he still gives up anyway. But he definitely perseveres and tries new ideas throughout the movie to the point where he doesn't feel like he gives up completely, or as easily as some other characters would if they turn into an animal in other movies. That part kept the middle entertaining and interesting enough not to feel completely boring. And there are definitely a few times where I laughed and smiled. Now, most of the time I laughed, it was at the expense of the movie because either the jokes were so lame that it's baffling, or because the movie had so many bad things about it that was so bonkers. But even if I set all those laughs aside, there were a few moments where I genuinely thought was funny. Some of those jokes were probably a little more adult-orientated than for a children's film of this nature. Jennifer Garner has a line in it, where she threatens to castrate the cat. That's a real joke in this movie. It was actually kind of funny and dark. It just out of nowhere. Well, I guess not out of nowhere, because a few scenes before that, they did threaten to fix the cat. So I guess it makes sense that this joke's in there later. It's just quite a few scenes after that fact. And I do feel there's enough in this movie that if you go into it wanting it to be bad, wanting to see a film that's so bad that you can laugh at in theaters or renting or whatever you want to do, if you want to have a good time because it's so bad of a movie, then by all means you probably could see entertainment value in 9 Lives. Because there are definitely plenty of moments within it where it's just so bonkers, so ridiculous, so atrocious that you can have a fun time and make fun of it. Now, the problem with that as well, there might not be enough in it for the whole picture. You see, it's like that a little bit towards the beginning, but towards the middle, it really drags to the point where there's not a lot of really horrendously bad moments that are so funny. It's mainly just boring and bland. And so if you go into the film wanting it to be bad and wanting to be entertained by how atrocious it is, you'll get most of your kicks out of the last 15 to 20 minutes of the film, because that's when it goes batshit crazy. But towards the middle, it might drag for you because there might not be enough in it for you to really have a fun time with a bad movie. So that's enough of the good. Let's get to the bad. Okay, I said Kevin Spacey was pretty good when he was his human self, but when he did the voice acting, when he was the cat, it was really phoned in to the point where it just didn't seem like he was the same person. And I guess maybe he's supposed to be a depressed cat, maybe he's supposed to be melancholy but it's just so... It just feels like he didn't want to be in it when it came to the voice acting part of the film. When it came to the acting part of the film, he seemed fine. But when it was the voice acting, he was really phoning it in, it felt like. And I've liked Jennifer Garner in other movies, but in this movie, she just looked really dumbfounded most of the time. There's almost like a dumbfounded expression throughout the film. And whenever she's chasing the cat, which happens, I think, 2 or 3 times, she's chasing a CGI cat, I think, every single time. And she just looks so dumb trying to chase it around. It's hard to explain. But the most atrocious part of the film, and the thing that I was laughing at the most, because of how awful it is the CGI and the green screen throughout. There's never one single good-looking effect in this film. And because of that, it is the worst CGI I've seen so far this year. It's worse than Allegiant. It's worse than Gods of Egypt. It's worse than the CGI in London Has Fallen. It is the worst. And I understand this is not a Jungle Book. This is not a Warcraft. But at least make it look like it's something of this era. Make it look like it's something past 2010. Because this looks like cats and dogs and Garfield stuff. That's how bad the CGI cat is, and whenever you see it, it's just so out of place and just looks so horrendously bad. So cartoony that it feels like I'm watching a totally different movie whenever there's green screen or CGI buildings. It is weird because it almost looks like a cartoony, stylized CGI version, almost like something that Tim Burton would do, like in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and a few other of his movies, or like Alice in Wonderland. It almost looks cartoony to that extent, but I don't think it was supposed to be cartoony stylistically. I think it was just bad CGI and green screen. And what's really crazy about it, they really like to show off their CGI buildings and horrible green screen with some of this camera work that is trying to be ambitious as it's doing these moves through the city and backing out and into a building. I think they honestly thought the CGI might have been that good. I don't think it's self-aware. I think they thought it was that good. There are definitely shots in this film where it tries to be artistic and self-important, and it fails on every single one of those shots because of the terrible CGI throughout each of those shots and because of the generic plot line. Maybe there is a little bit of self-awareness in this movie because of how generic the plot line is, and it's that same story where if a father turns into an animal, it's because he doesn't have enough time for his family. It's that same storyline. But it's so generic and so bland to the point where it doesn't feel like it's self-aware. It feels like it's just copy and paste animal guy turned into animal storyline. Now this CGI cat gets thrown around, falls down a lot. He's not the graceful thing because he's Kevin Spacey turned into a cat. And so there's a lot of slapstick comedy for the kids, which the children in the theater always seem to laugh at. It never failed for them to laugh at that. So if you're not a fan of a cartoony cat falling into things and colliding with things, well, there's a lot of that. I think another main issue with the film, other than the CGI, is the pacing, because there's this really slow, meandering pacing throughout the film. There's not a lot of urgency in the film and not a lot of focus, honestly. I think one of the things keeping it from feeling urgent throughout the film is a lot of the actors, a lot of the characters react strangely to these strange events. I mean, they don't react like real people. They don't react where they're like, oh, that's really bizarre, that's really strange. No, they just sort of don't react, or they just, that's pretty normal. No, that's pretty crazy. It takes a while for the fact that Kevin Spacey is in a coma and may not ever wake up to finally hit Jennifer Garner's character. And some of it has to deal with Kevin Spacey's voice work as the cat not feeling urgent, not feeling like, oh, I have to quickly get their attention so I don't have to be in this cat body and so I can save my coma body from dying. There's no sense of urgency. It just sort of goes along just slowly, and then finally towards the end it's like, oh my god, I'm dying. What have I been doing this whole time? Yeah, the middle just really slows down and really, it doesn't feel like there's any sense of urgency. But I do have to talk about the last 15 minutes of the film, because by far the most entertaining part of this movie, and if the most of the movie were as ridiculous and outlandish and bizarre as this last act of the film, then maybe we could have had a so bad it's hilarious movie that you could have a good time with. But before I get into that, I might as well do a rating in case you don't want spoilers. So I'll talk about this right after the rating. I'm going to give 9 Lives 1 star. You know what? It's better than Kindergarten Cop 2. I was almost thinking of giving this movie a half a star, but then I realized I gave Kindergarten Cop 2 a 1. And this is way better than Kindergarten Cop 2. So I'm going to give 9 Lives 1 star. But let's get into the last 15 to 20 minutes of the film, because that was the most entertaining by far. I really have to think about when the bizarreness really starts to kick in for the film. I think at some point after the daughter starts to figure out that her father is in the cat's body. Because that's when a lot of things start to get ridiculous. A few techniques and a few scenes start to look so amateurish that it feels like almost room quality. Well, at least one scene does. There's this one scene where the camera stays in one shot, and it's clear that this was maybe added footage, and they realize, oh, we don't have a lot of time, just talk as fast as you can. The characters in the scene are talking about Kevin Spacey's coma, and talking about whether he's really going to make it or wake up or anything. And it's the bad guy that's trying to take over the company. He's talking to the doctor, and they're talking really fast, just about as fast as this. They're just talking fast, and then she leaves, but the conversation's still going, so he's talking, she's talking, and then oh my God. It is the most rushed scene I've seen in a movie in a long time, and it was actually pretty hilarious to watch. But sometime after that, there's this really, really creepy scene, and I could not stop laughing. Me and my dad, we just thought it was the creepiest thing ever. We were laughing. It's supposed to be a very heartfelt, touching scene. Okay, so this scene is set up a little bit towards the beginning of the movie because the daughter is watching old videos of her as a younger kid with her father, Kevin Spacey. And there's this song that's playing, and they do a little dance where she steps on his feet and he goes around and they dance a little bit. And you know somehow that is going to play into the movie. Sure enough, it does. When she really feels that her father is in the cat's body or her father is speaking through the cat, she goes to the pet shop and she talks to Christopher Walken because he's a cat whisperer and she wants to really know. And so he's like, oh, I'm going to let him do the proof. So I'm going to leave this song here. And so he puts in this song. Christopher Walken, not only is he a cat whisperer, I think he can tell the future. Several moments throughout this film, he definitely lets on that he knows a lot more than most people would believe. So he puts this song on, and so it starts playing in the record as he goes into the back of the store. Well, it's the song that they dance to when in the video. And so Kevin Spacey as a cat, he reaches up for her, and she takes his paws, he gets on her shoes, and they start dancing. And it's supposed to be this heartfelt moment, right? But what's the creepy thing about it is when she's looking down and you see the camera almost through her perspective as she's looking down at the cat and the cat's looking up at her. Well, it's this CGI cat, and the CGI cat is creepy, Garfield looking, cats and dogs looking creature. Maybe even worse. And it's just so creepy, and he doesn't blink. He has these soulless eyes as he's looking up, and his head stays with her as his body sways underneath. And it's the creepiest thing in this movie, and we could not stop laughing. I will never forget that scene. Sometime after that, they go to the hospital where Kevin Spacey might not make it. He's in a coma. He might not make it. He doesn't have much longer left. And his son from his other marriage, who is a grown man and working in the same company as him, he's been trying to defend the company, trying to keep this one guy from taking over the company. Even though he has proof, he can't get it to the board, the people of the board, because the guy fired him. And so he feels he's failed. So he's talking to Kevin Spacey in a coma. The human comatose Kevin Spacey saying, I failed, Dad. I can't do it. And there's a opening of the building live on television, and it's on the TV, and he looks at it and he's like, I'm gonna climb to the top of the building and I'm gonna leap off it for the first and the last time. Something along those lines is almost word for word what he said. And so Kevin Spacey cat has overheard this. He's like, I gotta stop my son because he thinks, oh, he's going to commit suicide. Yeah, this is in a kid's film. This is in a kid's film. And so the son goes to the tallest building where it's about to be opened, and Kevin Spacey chases after him. Well, not until after the moment where he has to decide. Of course, you have that moment where the son is leaving. We're thinking he's going to commit suicide. But the daughter is like, come here, I have to show you. You have to help me show Mom that you're in the cat. And so he's staying there. His daughter is begging for him to come over so he can explain to the mother that he's in the cat. And his son is leaving, going into the elevator. And Kevin Spacey cat is like, huh? I have to make a decision. Oh God. And there was a talker throughout this movie. This was a movie where I actually had a talker throughout the film, and he didn't understand most of what happened. And when he did understand things, he'd like to say it, so he would point out the obvious. And so during this scene, this guy's like, sacrifice. Christopher Walken said he has to make a sacrifice. He's gonna make a sacrifice. And so Kevin Spacey cat chases after his son. But then Kevin Spacey eventually finds a way into the building after some shenanigans. And that's when, oh God, that's when there's these security guards, and they're watching this cat video of Kevin Spacey cat on YouTube, or something along those lines. I don't remember if it actually is YouTube or a different site. Oh, that's another thing I didn't mention. There's a scene in the trailer, you see it, where he's jumping across through the doorway, and the two wives collide with each other as they're trying to catch Kevin Spacey cat as he's flying in the air. And if you look in the background, you'll see all the other people that are at the party are behind them, and the little blonde-haired girl is taking a video. So it's like, okay, so that video is from that. Except the video they're watching is literally the scene we saw from the same angle we saw, even though it makes no sense because we're seeing it through the camera's angle, just like this video, when we should be seeing it from behind because that's where the blonde-haired girl is, and that's where she's taping. But we see it through this angle instead. There's actually a lot of that in this film where instead of using a different footage or a different camera angle, they literally just used the footage of the film and just copied and pasted it in moments where they need to show a video. But anyway, these security guards are like, no way! It's the cat from the video. And this video got so much hits. We're gonna make a hit. We're gonna break the internet. We're gonna make our funny cat video ourselves by tasing the cat. What? That's not gonna make you famous. Well, it might make you famous, but not in the right reasons. You're gonna go to jail for tasing a cat and taping it and putting it on YouTube. That's video evidence. What are you thinking? Obviously, these are the two stupidest security guards in a film for quite some time. But they don't manage to tase the cat. Instead, they tase themselves, and the cat dodges it, of course. But anyway, we finally get to the climax. We finally get to him finally getting to the top of the building where his son is about to leap off. Oh, that's another thing. There's a point in it where you see a camera angle from the top, and supposedly it's a helicopter because you hear radio chatter of them saying, oh, there's a guy on the roof, but then whenever it looks up, there is absolutely no helicopter, no CGI helicopter, no real helicopter. Where did that footage come from? The son leaps off the building and he's supposedly going to commit suicide. And Kevin Spacey cat grabs some wire with his teeth and jumps off, supposedly to catch him in the wire to stop him from falling. But as they're falling, as it's getting closer, you realize, hey, the son has the parachute on the back that he got from the beginning of the film. And as this is happening, Kevin Spacey cat, the wire just tightens and there's no more wire, and so he flips and he lets go of the wire and is falling to his death. And they're both falling, and then he gets to the same level as the son. The son's looking at him. He's like, Mr. Fuzzy Pants? Because that's the cat's name. And The cat is a CGI cat imitating to pull the cord from the chute. And so the son pulls the cord because he was going to make a grand entrance down at the proceedings below so that he can say, hey, this is wrong. I own the company and we're going to build it taller so it actually is the tallest building in the world or the northern hemisphere. But the guy doesn't think to catch the cat and then pull the cord or anything along those lines. And so he gets saved while the cat is still, Kevin Spacey cat is still falling. And that guy in the theater goes, he's making the sacrifice, making the ultimate sacrifice. As the cat is falling to his death. You see the camera as it zooms in close to as it just speeds up to the ground, and then as it hits the ground, you see Kevin Spacey wake up and he goes, meow, that hurt. But it's one of those things you gotta see for yourself. It's far funnier, far more ridiculous than you might think from me explaining it. And there's a little bit more after that too that I won't get into detail with, and I won't spoil that much, because those kind of things aren't mentioned in other reviews. The things that I have mentioned have been in other spoiler reviews, so it's probably less of a spoiler. So, did you see 9 Lives? What did you think about it? Go ahead and comment below. And if you like this video and you want to see more, please subscribe and check out my movie reviews of 2015 and 2016. As always, this is Bruce Gifford, and this was Just My Opinion.